and we load into the 2019 LEC draft. Irelia, Ezreal, Aatrox, Casio.
So, things like the Camille are still up and available. Galio and Lissandra are still up for grabs as well. Urgot has been another huge pick that many teams across the world love to prioritize. But interestingly, we are seeing a Morgana ban. Usually, across the world, Rakan has been one of the most prioritized champions. Things that provide engage in terms of the support pool. So taking the Morgana away is either a target ban towards Dreams or is something that Fnatic just don't want to deal with.
Is Rakan first pick worthy?
Oh, not yet. There is too much left available right now. Remember that the Akali is still up, the Galio is still up. Urgot will be taken away though, and I feel like that with things like Camille still up and available, with the Galio still up, with Lucian still available, it's going to be a very immediate lock-in for Fnatic.
It's so exciting to be in a meta where there is such a diversity of champions available to play. And Fnatic will be locking in Lucian. It is Rekkles' Fnatic, especially with Soaz and Caps gone. The Werlyb Jax hover, that is a history and a callback to when he was a one-trick pony.
Oh yes, he was. Back in 2016 when I first joined the league broadcast team, he was always playing that Jax, always having a fantastic performance on it, but he's expanded his pool. He's grown since then, and now they're going to shift their focus towards that bot lane. We already talked about the Rakan, it kind of being one of the priority picks. I do feel that you kind of want to pair this up with something like the Galio or the Camille right now, because it facilitates that engage very smoothly, but instead they're going to go for one of the other S-tier jungle picks in Xin Zhao.
All right, what do you make of this? It's still a similar vein. They can go in together. There's some synergies between these two. But what does Fnatic have to do to respond, knowing they've already got this hard gauge? Galio's still up if they want to give Nemesis a safe lane, safe type of game.
If I was Fnatic, I would look at the Camille-Galio combo right now. I think it offers really strong early rotations, kind of setting up the lanes on both bot and top. It also is a very strong 2 versus 2 mid-jungle duo. And if you've already got yourselves a Lucian, you're effectively grabbing yourselves 3 S-tier picks right from the get-go.
All right, let's see what happens. Next hover coming in sooner than later. Of course, Nemesis as well played for Mad Lions, former teammate of 3 members on the opposite side, and of course one of those counters to Rakan, Leona.
Now this does surprise me. I thought that they would look to try and grab themselves the jungle pick, get that good synergy setup, but Fnatic are focusing on getting themselves a strong 2 versus 2, and what's stronger than Lucian Leona? This has so much kill pressure, even just from the level 2 mark, and Fnatic are here to make a statement that even though we've lost Caps, we still have Rekkles, we still have one of the best bot lanes in the world.
All right, so Lovers duo, Crownshot and Dreams. Xayah, Rakan taking on Lucia, Leona by Rekkles and Hylissang. You've talked about Camille so much. Vedius, it is not bad. Taken away, so Broxah will have to dig a little bit deeper. Lissandra is the response as well over on the side of Fnatic, targeting Pirean. And we'll need to see how these draft rounds out. What direction do you want to see the teams go? Knowing, of course, SK will have that first pick in Phase 2.
Well, SK still need their mid and top lane. And remember, you can flex those both. So that's one of the advantages that they have of being on the red side right now. Fnatic are looking for their top laner and jungle is what you'd initially expect. And I feel like that if you are SK, you kind of want to prioritize saving your mid counter pick for as long as possible. Get Pirean on something comfortable. Make sure that the Galio is going into the mid lane. Things like an Azir and Corki have been shown to be strong counter picks into the Galio in the past and across the world. Alternatively, they could just pick something safe. Oh, as I say that, the Azir immediately gets taken off the board as well. So the number of counter pick options are kind of limited. If they're feeling adventurous, they could go for something like a Jace.
Ooh, that would be interesting. We've seen a little bit of that flirted with around the world. Of course, Akali's still open, but less likely to be picked, considering what's on the table. One of those other options that could still flex, the Sion, could go top or mid, pending the rest of Fnatic's drop.
So this is exactly a very safe blind pick. As you identified, QuickShot, you can put it in the mid lane. It's perfectly fine against the Galio. It's not going to die, and you can move it up to the top lane as well. So SK just waiting to see what Fnatic round out with.
All right, so for SK Gaming's first game back on the LEC stage at the top tier of League of Legends, nearly 3 years. They've nearly got their team composition out.
Wow.
And Vedius, you'll be happy to see Broxah playing Nocturne. The last time he played Nocturne was at All-Stars under your advisement, and it didn't go very well, but this is a very different beast.
It was in the mid lane, yes, and interestingly, you know, I wrote Swain in my preparation, and I thought the only team that's likely to pick it is Fnatic, but I feel like that it's fallen so far out of meta that probably won't be as prevalent, but something that Bwipo has showed pretty much throughout the entirety of 2018 is that he loves this champion, he finds success with this champion consistently, and it does really well into champions like Sion. So it kind of forces that down into the mid lane, so now SK will be looking for something else up top, but instead, they go for the Corki that we were talking about earlier.
So you like the Corki into Galio. What I see from Fnatic is a press R type situation, and they go, Corki, Xayah, you should not be here anymore. And if they can pull off that combination, those squishy duo carries could get blown up very, very quickly.
So in terms of raw teamfight damage, you just kind of look at Fnatic and you say, okay, they've got a very strong mid-game composition. They have a lot of engage tools, they have a lot of follow-up, and they have a lot of mid-game damage, especially around the 2-item mark. But they also have strong laners across the board. Swain should be able to pressure the Sion pretty effectively in the top lane. The bot lane should create relentless pressure all the time. So Fnatic have themselves 2 winning lanes. It's about how well they can utilize that pressure in the early game.
Okay, so expectations should be high though, because this is a team that has shown they can do that. 4 out of 5 players still playing together, and Nemesis on that slightly more supportive mid lane pick for Fnatic will also be able to jump in and try to counter some of that play. We're talking about Vedius, ladies and gentlemen. It is the first game of the 2019 LEC season. Throw those flares up and let's see if Fnatic, your European World finalists, will be able to pick up their first win of the Spring Split.
I am excited to see how this goes about. I've been waiting so long for European League of Legends to come back. QuickShot, second best league in the world. World finalists on your stage going up against the rebuilding SK. What better way to kick things off? We have exciting games. We're going to have a lot of bloodshed. Are you ready, QuickShot?
Not yet, but I will be once we load onto the Rift. Of course, a prediction there from a little animation. Whether or not it'll work out, that will remain to be seen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Fnatic taking on SK. Normally, this is where I would be jumping up the hype. We do have a small pause. Reminder that it is new players to the stage, new stage to the stage, and it is SK Gaming that have temporarily thrown down the pause. And of course, Vedius, as I mentioned, it's been a long time since SK played. We were relegated late in 2015, and in actual fact, the last game that SK Gaming played in the EU LCS was against Elements.
Ooh.
Do you know who happened to be calling that game?
Was it you?
It was indeed. Got a very special place in my heart because SK Gaming and Fnatic are 2 organizations that go back a very, very, very long time. They've been around for decades now, and they've competed in multiple games. That's what Shots was talking about, and that's also why, when the 2 frontmen were Spanish, an initial El Clasico came about. But SK has to live up to that legacy again, have to prove they belong.
And that's the big thing, right? Like, that rivalry doesn't exist right now. This is a new team. It is a very different Fnatic. But this is their opportunity to reignite that battle, to recreate what the rivalry was so long ago. Unfortunately, the pause has quickly been resolved. QuickShot hypers into the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as Fnatic take on SK Gaming and the debut match of LEC 2019. Gonna put my projection goggles on, Vedius. Turn to you and say, it's up to you to tell me. Where will the action be happening? Give me a lane, give me a reason.
So, the thing about SK's comp is it's definitely a little bit more on the scaling side. 2-3 items is really when this composition will kick into its own. Things like the Corki will be able to pressure out against the Galio. It has a range advantage. He can quite easily bully him out of lane. He has pretty effective wave clear. And also, because of his package, he can offer a little bit of more map pressure and his ability to roam. So he can kind of keep up with Galio much better than many other champions can. And it kind of outscales him a little bit better and later on into the game as well. You will notice he is running the Kleptomancy. Kleptomancy did have a small change recently where once you hit an enemy with an ability, then you can proc the Kleptomancy and get a couple of bonuses for 2 of your next basic auto attacks, which is very easy to get against a melee champion like Galio.
Helps a lot, especially in the early levels where Nemesis' Galio is not going to have the same level of wave clear Take a quick look at Nemesis player. Huge expectations for this man replacing Caps. He's a 19-year-old man from Slovenia. And this is a kid who is now stepping into a world finalist mid laner's position, and expectations couldn't be higher, especially for an organization like Fnatic.
Oh, for sure. But what we have heard multiple times from Fnatic players and Nemesis himself is that he is not here to be the next Caps. He is here to create his own legacy, to kind of be his own player, and how he fits into Fnatic is yet to be seen. That's what we're here watching, what we're waiting to see. But what we do know for sure is that he is not trying to just be Caps too.
Yeah, of course, it's going to be a difficult situation. You know what? Europe has a pretty storied history of successful rookie mid laners.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Stepping up to be very good ones. So expectations and possibilities are endless.
And he is going up against Pirean, who he did actually have a lot of respect for. And while Pirean didn't have the best competitive year in 2018, still being on SKT has to mean something. And the fact that he is in a winning matchup and able to create pressure in the early laning phase is working out quite favorably for him so far.
Well, Bwipo is being pretty favorable in the top lane, also sitting on that Klepto Swain, using the full rotation of available spells to bully Werlyb back ever so slightly, and you kind of expect that in these early levels where Swain can just push Sion around.
Yeah, he typically will, and we talked about it in the draft, how Fnatic have the top and bot are kind of pushing in their favor. You can already see that on your mini-map, but we talked a little bit about what SK will be looking to do in this game and how they have that pressure around the mid lane. What SK will likely be looking to do is around the level 6 mark, for the bottom lane, is when Selfmade could look for a gank. If they could bring Pirean down to the bot side of the map as well, that is their kind of avenue of attack. And if they can get Rekkles behind and start getting Crownshot those items faster earlier into the game, then SK is in a good position to challenge in the mid game and then can rely on their scaling later on.
Vedius, it feels like Hylissang sort of knows that because he's gone into the river and back at least 2 or 3 times since the laning phase began. Keeps sniffing out, trying to see where Selfmade is. You can see Selfmade already cleared out that Scuttle Crab and is trying to push through his jungle. And while Bwipo's pushed this wave in, he's just trying to deny Werlyb as much CS as possible and get those Klepto stacks as quickly as he can. And
I also want to bring attention to a couple of the rune changes that have happened as well, because you can see Selfmade running Hail of Blades. He actually has his eyes on the top lane right now.
And let's see, First Blood is available. Decimating Smash gets the knock-up onto Bwipo. Werlyb's down to 200. First Blood secured by SK Gaming.
Fantastic start for SK. They punish the overextending Bwipo. He doesn't have any vision towards the top side of the map, and he ends up getting punished for it. Very clean kill. SK off to an early gold lead.
Yeah, very nicely done. And of course, Selfmade is one of the more hyped-up rookies coming to the league. Polish jungler. Played a lot, has been playing for several years in the ERL, the National League scene. Also played with Mad Lions, one of the very, very successful players in 2018. And once again, just trying to show his dominance on a stage, this time the LEC stage. And as we mentioned, Hilly, he's sniffing. He's trying to make sure that Rekkles can push and farm safely.
Now, it is Broxah who is looking for an opportunity. These players are not giving me a chance to talk about some of the cool new stuff that we have on our screen. But that is kind of what the meta is revolved around right now. A lot of lane pressure, a lot more jungle involvement, and kind of like lane dominance. How teams utilize that pressure is a really good indication of a strength of a team. And while Selfmade found a good punish onto Bwipo, it hasn't translated into a significant lead just yet. But the lanes are kind of going as we expected, QuickShot. Top lane and bot lane in favor of Fnatic, mid lane in favor of SK. But that kill to Selfmade means that he's still keeping things pretty even across the board.
And it's actually very exciting for SK when you think that Xin's going to be one of the primary tools jumping on the front line, and Selfmade may find an opportunity in here behind Rekkles and Hylissang.
Now he did, remember we talked about him looking for an opportunity in the bot lane. Dreams goes in.
Alright, Dreams manages to dash in, dash out. The Xayah Rakan duo doing work. Summoning heal already blown. Zenith Blade buys some space for Hilly. The knockup from the 3-tower strike into a root. Hilly's down to 100 HP, 80 HP. Escapes with his life. Rekkles and Hylissang survive the gank.
Great use of the Eve from Hylissang to close the gap against Selfmade, briefly stun him, and then also escape from Crownshot and Dreams. That provided enough time for them both to escape, but it did cost them a lot of summoner spells. So good gank coming up from Selfmade, and I love his early game pressure. We talked about how he is a hyped up jungler. He's someone that we wanted to keep our eyes on coming into the new LEC season, and so far he's having a fantastic debut.
Let's talk about Xin Zhao versus Nocturne. Kind of expected. I feel I prefer the Xin Zhao early ganks, but Broxah is getting close to 6, getting close to Paranoia, and try to turn that back around.
Yeah, and the thing about Nocturne is he's much more about getting that first item and having the Paranoia where you'll see much more of his jungle involvement. But for Xin, especially with the Hail of Blades, he has so much damage in the early game. Hail of Blades, due to how it was changed, gives you 100% attack speed the moment that you're in combat with another champion, and it's It's so much burst damage, it is so effective, especially early on, and it also doesn't proc on your auto attack reset. So he can auto into his auto attack reset into auto, and then people just melt. So he's so strong in these early levels.
He becomes a machine gun of auto attacks,
Yes.
one might say. Well, we got a brief moment respite here as all the laners have gone to pick up some of their first-tier items. BF Sword for Crownshot. We've already got the Cutlass sitting for Rekkles, Sheen for Pirean. Broxah's going to find Selfmade, but it's level 5 to level 6. And you can see immediately Pirean was leaving the lane. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention, Vedius, that if some fans haven't been watching since last year or All-Stars, turret plating is now a thing. Of course, as you start to pitch those waves, additional defensive stats and additional gold to be gained for each turret plate that you knock down.
And this is why laning is so much more important right now, because if you have a strong lane, it means it's easier to get gold into your strong laners, and then you can translate that into even bigger leads. And so far in the bot lane, things have gone heavily in favor of Rekkles and Hylissang, but after that gank from Selfmade, the pressure has come off. So now that turret plating is in a much healthier state, and it is Crownshot and Dreams that can look to start chipping away at this tower, especially once they get level 6. I want to see SK make another gank towards that bot side of the map.
Well, seems like every gank Selfmade has already put in place has been effective, has secured themselves the 500 gold lead. One thing to note, though, that with Broxah's invade and some support from Bwipo, he was able actually to steal that red buff, so Selfmade's not going to gain access to that one for now. And Werlyb is just trying to hold on. He's level 7, he's got himself a Catalyst, but he's down 10 CS, and Selfmade is just coming up to try to protect him, as Bwipo is just doing Bwipo things, really, but it's also a matchup that is somewhat favored.
Yes, the Swain just using his range advantage, bullying the Sion around. We talked a little bit about in draft how it can be difficult, but now let's kind of look at options for Fnatic, because we talked a lot about how SK will be looking for these couple of opportunities. Selfmade has made a lot of great things happen in the early game, but now the level 6s are coming through for Fnatic. Hylissang, when he hits that level 6 mark, should be able to work with the Nocturne to set up an effective gank, potentially diving up towards the top lane. Galio, Nocturne, Swain, really effective trio at being able to find these really good dive setups and making these plays happen. So now that these levels are coming through, this is where we should see Fnatic start being more proactive on the map.
All right, Unstoppable Onslaught was thrown down. I was keeping my eyes on Selfmade because I thought he was going to be the one that's proactive. Wasn't the case. And of course, for Fnatic, they are a little bit behind. Correction, they're in fact a little bit ahead. Thanks to those Kleptos and the CS that's been picked up in the top lane. Bwipo's doing a lot of good work. So kudos to him there. But on a scale of calm to panicked, where would you rank Fnatic and their fans if SK Gaming were to win this match?
I wouldn't be panicked at all. I think many Fnatic fans know that early on in the split, Fnatic just lose games. It is a thing that happens to them. And I also think that with the introduction of Nemesis, it will take them time to figure out how to find the most effective strategy to enable this team. And the thing you've got to remember, though, is that with this composition, the pressure kind of falls on Fnatic to be the more proactive team. Remember how we said that SK have much more of a scaling comp? Yeah. Once they get to 3 items, Corki and Xayah will be very obnoxious to deal with. They have a lot of escapes, they have a lot of safety tools, so this dive comp becomes a lot harder to execute, especially when you have this big, beefy front line of the Sion as well.
I'm so happy that SK Gaming are stepping up and showing us a competitive debut in LEC, because I have a quick stat for you. Do you know how many days it's been since we've seen SK Gaming on this stage?
1,084.
Not bad. 1,274 days. I have some more stats prepared for you, but an initiation is on the cards. Rekkles and Hilly decide to dive in. Hilly's in a little bit of trouble as he takes some autos from Crownshot, and he's able to escape. Only the Summoner Ignite thrown down. Well, once again, 1,274 days since SK Gaming's last match on this stage. They were relegated at the end of 2015. They played 179 games. And this is their first one back, and they are going toe-to-toe the World Championship finalists.
I really love the play from Dreams right there. He ulted onto Rekkles, not Hylissang. The follow-up was denied from Fnatic, which meant that Crownshot could reposition. He didn't even have to burn any of his summoner spells. He still has his ultimate available, and they completely dissuaded the 2 versus 2. Now, the problem for SK is that Rekkles was able to pick himself up 2 tower plates, so he's going to get a bit of extra gold in his back pocket, and the bot lane for Fnatic is still going to feel very happy. But what I would have liked to see from Fnatic is more coordination with either Broxah or Nemesis. Work with these semi-globals to be able to set up this play more effectively, rather than just trying to win the lane 2v2 by yourself.
You have to think by nearly 12 minutes in game, we haven't seen a single Paranoia or a single Galio ultimate. I start to get nervous because SK still hold on to a very strong position. This time, Werlyb is going to be pushing into Bwipo. He's got that Sion passive to work with, but look at the damage on Selfmade. Bwipo tries to turn this one around. He's got the Demonic Ascension, has the ability to burst. Already used the Ignite and will just push that wave back ever so slightly. While that's going on, Hilly and Broxah, they're pushing mid.
Now, Hylissang used to do this a lot in the summer split of 2018, where he would group up with Broxah and look for opportunities around the map. It looks like that he actually went towards the mid lane, and now the flash is down, he's looking for another shot.
Oh, Pirean's in trouble! The flash engage dodged away from really easily by Pirean. Kind of felt like he was on edge, kind of felt like he anticipated, he was ready and he responded.
So I wasn't entirely sure how both Nemesis and Pirean burnt their flash prior to that gank, but what we do know is that Pirean showed a lot of respect. He was very aware that his jungler is topside, he has no vision in the river, the enemy support is missing, and that is a lot of restraint being showed by Pirean to not give away that kill. Another failed setup from the side of Fnatic results in SK walking away with their lives.
All right, 12.5 minutes in. First big items are now completed. Rod of Ages for Bwipo, Abyssal Mask in the top lane, Hextech Protobelt for Nemesis' Galio, Trinity Force, the list goes on. Only Rekkles looking to complete that Blade of the Rune King in not too much time. It will take just a few seconds. While that's going on, we've got a small initiation around this blue Sentinel. And Broxah's going to be able to steal away that Scuttle Crab.
And I like that you mentioned the Proto Belt. This is something that we're seeing a lot more from Galio mid. Now, he did receive a bunch of changes. His AP scalings went up. He does a lot of damage. And one of the other cool things that mid lane Galio brings is that with a bunch of the rune changes, it means that you now have a lot more stat lines that you get to choose from. So you can fill it more with AP or armor or magic resist. And what most Galios do is they run Aftershock and then they just stack it full of AP. So you still do loads of damage. You're still really tanky, you're really obnoxious, and it kind of means that you can just continue to build more AP while still retaining a lot of that tankiness.
And that's, of course, allowing Nemesis the options, but I want to see him use his ultimate. He's down 25 CS in lane. This Corki has just pulled ahead, despite being flashless, also anticipated or was ready for a potential gank. And unfortunately for both of these teams, with the Cloud Drake being the first spawn, it's not the highest priority to risk big engagements around, so neither team has made any real investment or commitment to try to pick that objective up. We've just crossed 14 minutes. We talked about the turret plating earlier. They have now officially expired, so that bonus gold and those bonus defensive stats are no longer available. And if towers start to fall, that can accelerate the tempo of this game.
And that's an important point there, QuickShot, because remember, what we said for Fnatic, they have two strong winning lanes, Swain and the Lucian Leona. They wanted to be taking as much of that turret plating and creating as much pressure as possible in the early game to transition into a strong mid game. Now, they're not weak in the mid game. The gold is even, but when you have this scaling SK comp, if they can keep the game going this way, they're in a perfect position.
Look at the minimap. Hilly and Broxah are coming to support. Hilly's going to find Selfmade. Fnatic debated SK Gaming. And while the stopwatch was used by Selfmade, kill secured by Broxah. Not done yet. Here comes Pirean. He jumps in with the package. The damage burst is amazing. And Hylissang is down. Sheepy's on his feet celebrating. Broxah gets taken out. Pirean's on with the double kill. He's not done yet. Nemesis forced to use a Justice Punch to run away. A smash knocks Bwipo into the air, and SK Gaming, they get the reply kills after losing the first.
And this is what we talked about with the Corki. The package enables you to follow the Galio. You can keep up with him. And with the arrival of Pirean and Dreams, SK turned what was an advantage for Fnatic into a bigger advantage for SK.
The tension in Berlin is growing as SK Gaming have a lead against Fnatic. This is not what many fans expected, but boy, oh boy, am I loving this for the start of the season.
Look at the mid lane.
All right, let's see. Zenith Blade needs to find its target. Crownshot's got flash available. Gonna be able to use the Featherstorm just to jump up and fly away. Crownshot does a good job of escaping the gang.
Does go the wrong way round, but you know what? He gets away with his life, so he's going to be pretty happy with that. Meanwhile, Rekkles is left unchallenged on this bot lane tower, but as Werlyb arrives, it should be enough to keep this one alive. But look at the potential dive situation. Broxah is making his way bot. Leona's hanging around as well. but nothing will likely come off the back of it. So SK looking pretty good. That top lane play, remember that it all started off with Werlyb and Selfmade trying to make a play happen. Fnatic, they read it well. They knew that Selfmade was investing all of his resources into trying to get Werlyb like back into the game, keep him alive, kind of shut down this Swain. But they read it, they punished, and now we have the Drake kicking off.
All right, Hylissang steps forward. He threatens an engage with the solar flare, but SK read the situation well. They've littered the minimap with wards. Look at all of the pings on Broxah and Bwipo near the top quadrants of the map. SK Gaming are working with a lot of information. They got the first blood, they got the first dragon, they got a few turret platings in the mid lane, and while a tower has not yet fallen, SK Gaming are not buckling under any pressure, and they are playing exceptionally well. Of course, it's Pirean, that mid laner that you talked about, who was a substitute for SK Gaming and has a number of teams under his belt, but SKT, thank you. SKT, now playing for SK.
Right,
so just a testament to the ability.
This is the replay that we were talking about a little bit earlier on. Fnatic, they read the play, they saw that Selfmade was going to come towards the top side of the map, they punish it. This is really good from the side of Fnatic. But then, while this is all happening, Dreams has already rotated elsewhere on the map. He wants to try and catch up to Hylissang, and that is such a fantastic flash into taunt, into knockup, to set up Pirean to come in, deal the damage, and find 2 quick kills. I don't believe they translate this into anything more due to the tanky nature of Bwipo and Nemesis, but the fact that SK were able to react so quickly and cleanly shows that this team is no pushover.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I really feel like Selfmade has been the one of the players that has been a huge impact this game. We just caught that picture-in-picture. Selfmade helps Pirean knock over the mid tower, while up in the top lane, Werlyb was able to secure the top. So it's 2 tower advantage, a 2,000 gold lead for SK Gaming. And Selfmade is this new, hungry Polish jungler to the scene. And his debut match in the LEC is really impressing me with the decision-making, with his pathing, and just, he's everywhere his team needs him.
But the big challenge for him will now come into the next set stages of play, because the one thing about Fnatic, and the one thing that has kind of been true for them for a very long time, is that late game team fighting is their baby. It's something that they've owned in Europe for many, many years. And a lot of it comes off the back of the Wonder Boy Rekkles. He is on Lucian, not the strongest late game carry, but it's still enough for him to potentially turn this around as Broxah loses his life.
He does indeed. Nemesis comes down with a hero's entrance, but that's going to have to be a heroic defeat. Hylissang may need the solar flare just to buy some time. Crownshot comes in as well, and Hilly goes down. 2 quick kills to SK Gaming. And, you know, I didn't believe it for the longest time, but SK are continuing to pull ahead. SK are continuing to sway my opinion. They may just be able to build up a lead with a good scaling comp to take down Fnatic.
And a lot of it just feels like Fnatic are not showing the same coordination that they showed at Worlds, that they showed in summer of 2018. Members are being caught out of position. People are trying to save people that cannot be saved. And let's just look at the whole map right now. You can see that Broxah is trying to clear vision when he doesn't have control over mid. Selfmade and Pirean are able to quickly collapse, but hey, he thinks if I've got the Galio ulti, I'm fine. No, that just baits Nemesis and Hylissang in. But again, they're outnumbered. Swain is still topside, Lucian is in the mid lane, and Fnatic, they just don't seem to be on the same page, whereas SK, they're leveraging that Mad Lion synergy that they have. They're leveraging the fact that 3 of these members have played together for a long time, and they're punishing these small mistakes from Fnatic.
And of course, we keep saying this Mad Lion synergy, and it just means they played in a team, but this was a team that won LVP, that won EU Masters, that has plenty of tournaments in their trophy case, and is doing exceptionally well. Now let's take a look at available ultimates as we've gone past the 20-minute mark. Nemesis has got that hero's entrance on cooldown. Baron will be spawning. And SK Gaming have got a very good setup. 2 items power spike completed for pretty much all of their carries. And they're going into this mid-game well. How much of a gold lead does there need to be for SK for you to feel extremely comfortable that their composition and the gold lead is enough to take down Fnatic?
The moment that 3rd item comes through is when I think that SK are primed and ready to win the game. But until that happens, Fnatic still have opportunities. It's just about finding those picks right now. There are a lot of pick power on the Fnatic side with the Leona, with the Nocturne, but SK are doing a great job of just grouping up.
Take a look at that. Dream stepping all the way forward. Hylissang's in trouble. The Zenith Blade does nothing. Goes golden with a stopwatch. Now all of a sudden, SK Gaming are on the retreat. Werlyb is being interrupted by Bwipo. The top lane. The burst damage! Not enough to kill Dream. Summon a heal. Keeps him alive. Fnatic turned that around, but it was the usage of stopwatch in the item pool for Hilly. It's now broken, he won't have that again.
So you can see that Fnatic are not completely out of this yet. Good Galio ulti from Nemesis to provide a little bit more defense there for Hylissang, push SK back, but then the moment a lot of the engage tools from SK were gone, they didn't have a front line to play around anymore. Werlyb was not in a position to just keep up. I mean, he wasn't even involved in the fight. He didn't choose to TP in, which meant the Fnatic could look for the re-engage with the Nocturne. And I don't think that the ult was the best decision. It cost Broxah his flash, which is a very valuable skill when you are playing this Nocturne champion, and he isn't able to find a kill off the back of it either. So it was a very high risk for probably not the greatest of rewards.
Especially just before Mountain Drake as well. So this will be an easy objective secured by SK Gaming. They've already got themselves that 3,000 gold lead, 3 towers to 0. They've got their second Drake of the game. The Mountain's going to help them out. There is one small factor. Because Fnatic have got this like pick composition, if they can take down Pirean or Crownshot, that's an 800 gold and a 450 gold bounty. That is relatively easy to secure if they can pull off the dive combination correctly.
While they do have a lot of pick power, they also have a lot of team fight power. The problem is when you kind of compare the two team fight comps, look how much disengage is available on SK. You have Dreams, who can dive in, use his charm, ulti everyone up, and the rest of SK can disengage. You have the Xayah ultimates. You have Pirean and his W with the package as well. You also have the knockback from Selfmade's ultimate. So while Fnatic have a lot of strong engage tools, SK can just stop them from finding that perfect engage.
All right, Rift Herald was used in the mid lane. Tower's already secured. Hylissang throws down the flare. Sitting on the back end is going to be the engage from Bwipo. He completes the teleport, but Dreams goes down. That's so far 1-for-1, support for support. The damage dealers need to be killed though. Broxah's taken out by Selfmade as he's on the retreat. Bwipo's looking for another kill. It's a 1-for-2 in favor of SK Gaming. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a dramatic pause as SK maintain control here in Europe.
But when we get that replay back, I really want to bring attention to how well Bwipo played that fight. The flank that he found, the amount of damage that he was dishing with the Swain, just goes to show how strong this team fight can be from the side of Fnatic if they find the perfect opportunity to set it up. But with all these disengaged tools, it was incredibly difficult to lock everyone down. And while I praise Bwipo, Werlyb was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Bwipo was diving onto the backline, and then Werlyb just goes, no, 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 Rekkles, you will stay here, we will play together, and then once my team is safe, then you are allowed to play League of Legends again. But he did such a great job of just stopping him from getting involved in the fight, which means that a lot of the damage, a lot of the follow-up just disappeared for Fnatic.
Just a beautiful start to the season. And while we continue to investigate the reason for the pause, we do actually have a replay of that final team fight. So if I can ask production to bring that up, we'll take a look at exactly those plays that help define what you described, Vedius, and draw the viewer's attention to specifically what Bwipo and Werlyb did that you really like.
So the engage starts from Hylissang, but look at how early the TP is coming in from Bwipo. Fnatic know they want to start this fight, but keep your eyes on what Werlyb is doing on the front line. He is just trying to zone the members away. He wants to keep Rekkles out of the fight. And if Bwipo had just had that extra bit of damage, this could have been a huge team fight win for Fnatic. Bwipo and Rekkles would have been more than enough to just melt through that backline, but Werlyb did a great job of just zoning Rekkles away, preventing Nemesis from getting that extra bit of CC in, and it was just the two top laners just trying to do exactly what they can to try and win their team the fight.
Well, unfortunately, it was not for Fnatic. SK Gaming continue to pull ahead. Just a quick reminder for you guys, obviously we have 4 more games after this one today, but tomorrow is the LEC's match of the week. It will be Fnatic taking on Origin. This is a legacy match of organizations that predates League of Legends, and Fnatic versus Origin is a matchup that back in the day was the best EULCS final that ever existed. Let's see if Origin can live up to the pressure when they set up on stage. But let's turn our attention back to this game. What does SK Gaming have to do to extend this lead further? We know that Fnatic have to find a pick, slow this tempo down. But how do SK prevent it? Is it barren?
The thing about SK's comp is, remember, I'm going to keep reinforcing this, they have the scaling. Sion is only going to get tankier. He is only going to get more obnoxious for Swain to try and kill later into the game. At 3 items, which the Corki is very close to reaching, he has too much damage, just too much. And then the Xayah is in a very similar boat. And like in that point in the game, he's going to be dealing more damage than the Galio, more damage than the Lucian as well. So SK, they just kind of need to keep pressure, but they don't need to overextend or force anything. The onus kind of falls on Fnatic. And the situation that you just saw is what they want to be doing. They either want to be finding these fights around Baron, maybe they want to find a fight around an objective that SK is sieging up towards, something like a Dragon, and they want to try and out-team fight SK. And again, that team fight was very close. A couple of small differences in execution for Fnatic could have been the swing that they needed to come back into this game.
All right, so that's a big benefit for Fnatic. Just a few small tweaks in these upcoming team fights, they can bring it back. But when I look at these play cams, there are some concerned faces here on the side of Fnatic. I had some big praise for Broxah because I loved his performance at the World Championships. And Young Buck backstage sitting with the support crew. This is your 6-star general. 6 EU LCS titles consecutively picked up under the leadership of Young Buck. And he's looking to pick up the first LEC. Now, it's a long season. There's 9 weeks of games. This is the very first opportunity for Fnatic. They play Origin tomorrow. But what a headline it would be for SK and Origin to potentially beat Fnatic in week 1.
There's that, right? But you look at SK and they play Misfits tomorrow. And you know how, I don't know, for those that may have listened to the Euphoria podcast, early on in the split, something that Frost was very adamant about was that maybe Misfits won't be that strong. She actually put them down in 8th, below SK. And then you kind of look at how SK are playing right now and you're like, you know, and you're kind of like, oh, that could also be a really exciting matchup. So LEC is already proving that we have a lot of new teams, a lot of competitive teams, and some new names that are looking to make a statement.
It is, and of course, you know, we are praising SK a lot because they are doing a lot of good things. We do need to call out the fact that Fnatic have not pulled the trigger on those ultimates frequently enough, in my opinion. I feel they could have been a little more proactive.
I agree.
While we continue to wait, I'm just going to give you guys an update, ladies and gentlemen. In the last team fight, Fnatic did report some latency issues. So league officials are reviewing the footage. We use a software called Shadowplay that will allow them to watch from the players' perspectives. While league officials are investigating, we will continue to buy some time and then get ourselves pushing forward for the remainder of the game. For Fnatic, it's all eyes on them. For them, it's everything to lose, so to speak. You know, they come back as the second best team on the planet to Europe.
That's very true.
And
I mean, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they are missing some of those components.
They are indeed. They are indeed. Still doesn't make it less dramatic.
That's very true. But yeah, high expectations for Fnatic. On the podcast, there were people, I mean, we had Frost and Deficio both saying that Fnatic should be at a very high tier. Like, coming into the split, you should have high expectations of Fnatic. They still kept 4 of the 6 members. Bwipo was the guy that primarily played at the World Championship.
Yep.
He introduced things like the Victor Top, where he, quite frankly, obliterated Licorice with. He had a fantastic tournament overall. And kind of expectations were very high. Even with the new rookie Nemesis, people weren't necessarily expecting him to just come in and obliterate everyone, but expectations were still high for this team. And across the board, a lot of people didn't really know what to think of SK. People were familiar with some of their players. People saw, okay, I recognize some of the Mad Lions players. Okay, they've got Pirean. I remember Dreams from his stint on the Mysterious Monkeys. He showed some cool stuff. He showed some, and he played a little bit as the sub for Vitality last split as well. And so, like, you kind of look at this roster and you think, okay, I can kind of see some cool stuff, but I don't think they can really contest against the top teams. I don't know. But early on in the split, when they're utilizing the synergy that they already have against a Fnatic that is still kind of figuring out how best to play the game, they're taking advantage of that and they are playing extremely well.
What makes me very excited is when I think back to 2018 Spring Split, we came in with very set expectations and teams stepped up and surprised us. We had the most competitive split ever, down to the point that on day 2 of week 9, playoff spots were still up for grabs and being secured. So to see, you know, a new team under an old returning organization already stepping up, it gives me a lot of hope and excitement. We're going to see Rogue and XL later in the day, the new look Origin as well, and it's just, there's a lot to be excited about for the league this year.
And I just kind of, I'm going into analysis mode a little bit, if you don't mind, QuickShot.
Please do.
Something that I've spoken to a couple of analysts in Europe about is how pressure is important. And you'll hear a lot of analysts kind of across the world talk about which lane is winning and which lane has pressure. But the difference between what makes a good team and a great team in the current meta is how you utilize that pressure. And it's all well and good having a winning lane, but if you don't take advantage of it by either translating that lead to other lanes, maybe snowballing for early turret plating, if you don't try and take advantage of that, then you're kind of missing on opportunities, and it gives the other team windows to take advantage. And what we've seen in this game is Fnatic haven't had an opportunity, or they haven't really shown a willingness to try and use the strength of their lanes. Instead, they've just kind of reacted a lot to what SK has done.
And I think it's so important that you highlight that, because on the side of SK Gaming, Pirean is 3-0-3 on this Corki. Yes, he has a favorable matchup into the Galio, but to put some things into perspective, at 23 minutes in game, Pirean has a plus 38 CSD over Nemesis. He is also plus 3,600 gold over Nemesis. Now, the reason those numbers are important is Fnatic as a team are behind 2,800 gold. So Rekkles and Bwipo are picking up some of the slack.
Yes.
But this matchup, this pressure point, has been utilized effectively. And this is credit to SK's play by doing the right things, by making the right decisions when they have the advantage. And again, just further impressing upon viewers and ourselves that Fnatic's hesitancy has kind of put them in this hole. Now, it's not game over.
No, it's not.
It is absolutely not. It's far from it. We still need a few more objectives to happen.
Close a game, right? Yes. And that's another big thing. And you know, it's one thing to get a lead. It's another thing to then turn that into an actual victory and taking down the Nexus. And we saw in that last fight what Bwipo can do. This guy has a lot of damage on the Swain. He's very proficient at the champion. And I love the way in which Fnatic actually set up the team fight. The early teleport into the engage from Hylissang. The coordination in terms of actually fighting is still there for Fnatic. The core essence that got them to the World Finals still exists.
And I think this is going to be a replay. We have resumed. We are back in game. Vedius, our computers have been disconnected. That's why we're both confused right now.
Sorry.
And of course, as we are back into game, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for bearing with us through that review. As we have continued to jump into the game, and we'll take stock of the situation. SK Gaming, 7 kills to 2, 2 dragons to 0, and they are up 3,000 gold. Importantly, they are 4 towers to 1.
So now we'll see Fnatic investing a lot more vision around the Baron area. Not that they're expecting SK to suddenly rush it down, but this is going to be the big point of contention over the next few minutes. Baron, on the current patch, makes it very easy for teams to just end the game. It is at the 25-minute mark. Cannon minions start spawning on every single wave. And so if you pair that up with a Baron at 25 minutes, you can just imagine how strong that siege becomes, especially with things like a Corki and like a Xayah.
And one of the big things that you said for me to look for earlier, Vedius, was the 3-item spike. Pirean has got himself the Storm Razors, Rapid Fire Cannon, and that Trinity Force already completed, and Crownshot's working towards that Infinity Edge. So very, very high amounts of damage to be put out. Also, Summoner spells. There's no flashes yet, so you have to feel SK Gaming will probably wait for Pirean and Crownshot to get their flashes back before setting up for big plays. But they're fine for that. They're comfortable. Obviously, we have resumed just before we continue to look at the game. After reviewing the shadow play, League officials have not been able to confirm reports of any latency and have made the call, decided that we will continue to play through, hence the resolution of the game. And hence the fact that Fnatic are still trying to find their way back in.
So, again, for them right now, it's about maintaining vision control, looking for a pick, waiting for SK to make that mistake. Remember, closing the game is still very different from holding on to a lead, and the lead isn't so insurmountable that Fnatic can't come back just yet. And this might be the pick they're looking for.
So much damage on the Selfmade. He's got Flash available in support. Here come Dreams and Pirean. The Valkyrie's available with the use of the package. Pirean's on a rampage. A 900 gold bounty. It's going to get dove on by Broxah, but there's no follow-up. There's not enough damage. There's no Galio ultimate, and Fnatic are in so much trouble. Werlyb escapes by the skin of his teeth. 100 hit points to speak of, and SK Gaming get 2 kills from Selfmade being caught.
What started off as a big pick for Fnatic ended up in a huge team fight win for SK. SK, they turned that around beautifully, and so much prop has to go to Selfmade. He remained calm in the situation. He used his ultimate to split apart Bwipo and Hylissang, and then he just relied on the rest of his team to get that collapse in. And Dreams with the initiative to go for that engage, dive onto the backline, use that ulti, because he knows that the rest of his team is going to follow up, was exactly what they needed to find those kills and get another big advantage over Fnatic.
I am so impressed by SK. They stared down the barrel of the beast and they did not flinch. Exceptional play from the squad. And I'm starting to get very, very anxious for Fnatic, because that's another team fight in a row with these little nuances, these little details, where Nemesis's ultimate is not in combination with connecting with the paranoia. Had Nemesis and Broxah been able to land on Pirean, potentially, with the CC, could have been able to pick up that kill and turn that around. But, you know, hindsight is always 2020.
The first thing we'll do is we'll look at the position of the mini-map when we go into the replay, because it's really important that when committing to a fight, you're aware of where all the pieces are on the chessboard. And what it feels like is that many of the times when Fnatic have tried to go for these plays, their pieces have not been in the right place, whereas SK's just conveniently happen to be in a position where they can answer it. And this, to me, feels like another situation where Fnatic, in an attempt to try and come back and get something back, they're going to try and... they overcommit to the play, and SK ends up punishing them.
We used to say a term sort of chasing the loss. When you are behind and you feel the pressure to avoid it, to come back when you're in that deficit, you make decisions, you try to force plays where you can get advantage. Now, Vedius, unfortunately, we do have another pause. Fnatic have once again reported issues of latency. Our league officials will be investigating. While they do so, we're going to head over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, guys. Let's hope we won't be out of the game for too long. But luckily for us, there is a decent amount to break down, because SK definitely coming prepared in their very first game back in the LEC. And at this point, quite massively ahead of Fnatic. How did that happen?
I mean, for me, it has to start with Selfmade. Now, you heard Trevor and Andrew talking about Selfmade on the cast. You saw a couple of his early ganks. I just have to reinforce this. This is my jungler to watch. This guy is so good. And I think one of the reasons why Nemesis has so much hype around him and why the Mad Lions were kind of, you know, the baby step into the LEC, if you will, at this point, was because of Selfmade. And he's not just a mechanically strong jungler, he's a very intelligent jungler.
I think you can even have seen it when he was in the European Masters, right? His Taliyah play there was impeccable. When he was in the LVP playing for Mad Lions, he did an incredible job. And it's the reason a lot of people see the LVP as like one league below the LEC. They have so many good players, and people forged that are going to be great in the LEC.
And we had a lot of questions. You know, SK effectively gutted 3/4 of the Mad Lions, took that roster, put it on the spot. So we knew that there was going to be some inbuilt synergy between Selfmade, between Werlyb, and between Crownshot, the three former members of the Mad Lions. But they didn't bring their shot caller Falco, the support. And so when you looked at the SK lineup, you're like, can this team be able to keep up on a macro level with some of the gods like Fnatic? And the answer so far has been yes. Lovely dragon rotations. They managed to get the Rift-Tailed. The fact that they got both the dragon and the Rift-Tailed because Fnatic were a bit late to the call just again goes to the fact that I feel like Selfmade, Werlyb, they're stepping up and they're helping lead the charge.
Absolutely, and that together with Pirean in the mid lane as well. They just seem to be incredibly prepared and on the money in their very first game. So we have to put it on the side of Fnatic now and ask, are they then not exactly there yet? It kind of feels like it. You talk about that Mad Lions lineup and everything that's good about it. Nemesis is the one that we are looking at. Can we say anything towards his performance so far?
I think the big thing for me with Nemesis is that he never wanted to be new caps. He never wanted to be the 0 to 100 mid laner who would 1v1 his opponent. He always said he was going to be this guy that would play a little bit safer, that would never lose his lane, but never really win his lane as well. And you saw that in this game. 38 CS behind on the Corki Galio matchup. He just wasn't able to make an impact.
So Fraz, do you think that this is a stylistic change, that it's just going to take time for the whole of Fnatic to deal with? Of course, no man overboard. They have not lost this game yet, but SK is very well in the game.
Yeah, let's be clear that with Fnatic's composition, it's just a single team fight before things are right back around. And when you do have that veteran experience, their ability to eat up so much on the map on any victory they get, mean that Fnatic aren't out by any stretch of the imagination. As far as Nemesis is concerned, when I watched him in the Spanish league, I noticed that he was very good at playing around his jungler. Now, of course, his jungler was Selfmade, who he's now playing across from. So he should feel very familiar with that. But with Broxah, I kind of expected the dynamic to be for Broxah to be that hard carry, which which on a pick like Nocturne he can, but he doesn't have the same early game pressure as we saw at Worlds with Lee Sin. So for this iteration of Fnatic to be successful, I'm going to expect Nemesis to be that more backing up his jungler, Broxah to be a carry, and then playing around the top side of the map before they go down and pick up Rekkles and Hilly for more of that big Fnatic team fighting.
And I think the problem with playing around the top side of the map for the moment is Bwipo is overextending like a madman in that lane. Got ganked by Selfmade twice because he was just well out of position, gave up first blood as well. You can tell they lack a little bit of the experience that Soaz would have had, where he knew when to step back, he knew when to give up a little bit of CS. Bwipo just pushing too far forward gave Selfmade and SK the lead they needed.
We just caught it there that he's definitely talking to the team. He seems to be pumping them up and seems to be just amped up. And I mean, maybe it's getting in his head as well, because now he is that sole top laner for Fnatic. This is not a situation he's been in before, and the whole team is seemingly having to adjust.
I mean, Bwipo always said that he wants to play in the games that matter. He went to the World Championship. He got to play 2 of those games.
This one matters right now.
This one does matter right now. But that said, I know a lot of fans, you see a name like Fnatic, you're like, this organization can just print championships. It just carves out superstars. And Bwipo will be a superstar. His rookie year was undoubtedly incredible, but there's going to be some teething pains. They lost Soaz and Caps. That's a huge loss, even when you do have young talents like Bwipo and Nemesis behind them.
Yeah, and the thing about superstars is that there's always one waiting in the wings, and some of those may be on this SK Gaming lineup. And you guys already talked about Selfmade, but Frost, break it down for me. How did he step into this game in the early and the mid game? He really stamped his authority on this one.
Now, to be fair, he was always going to have the edge in the matchup, especially for the early ganks, because it was a Xin Zhao versus Nocturne. Now, it was, I believe, 2 or 3 early ganks that Selfmade got up. This was an issue with Bwipo being overextended, maybe some calm breaks down. I don't want to just put that one on Bwipo. Broxah could have been on the other side of the map, but then it just doubled down as Selfmade continued to lead to the charge.
And you continue to see Fnatic kind of make a few mistakes in their team fighting as well. You have this ability to dive onto the backline. You're not teaming it up with the Galio ult. Those should be combined for you to be able to win out these team fights.
To be fair to Fnatic, though, at this point you have a 3-item Corki, you're in a tiny choke point, and what is Rekkles supposed to do on such a short-range champion like Lucian? Yeah, his ability to skate around team fights, but he's only got 1 choke point to try to skate forward into, and you're looking at a Corki, at a Rakan. It's just so hard to dive into that backline.
Fnatic put so much impetus on that first pick Lucian, though. Like, they gave up the ability to first pick something like the Galio. The Lissandra was available as well. They could have gone for a jungler. Yes, he's a power pick. Yes, he's very strong, but I haven't seen enough from Rekkles or from Fnatic around that bottom lane to justify it.
Which is why I actually think the crux of kind of how this champion select broke down was in the second ban phase, when Lissandra and Azir were banned by Fnatic as opposed to the Corki. Now, Corki's an old school, I'm not going to call it a direct counter in a Galio, but usually an answer to Galio. He can match a lot of that side roam pressure. He's going to hyperscale into the late game. He can bully the Galio out a little bit, match him maybe for some of the wave clear. And I think that's kind of where these issues are coming into play, because Nemesis is just unable to get away from Corki and start using that ultimate. Because it's what? Past 15 minutes in the game, and we really have only seen 1 Galio ultimate with the Nocturne.
Yeah, I do think that in the replay we saw there, Fnatic is trying to push still. They are trying to put it back in their favor. They are trying to keep fighting. Is that what they should do? Or do they have to chill for just a minute until it's their time?
I honestly think they fall behind as the game goes on and on. You've got Xayah, who I think is stronger than Lucian in the late game. You've got the Corki that we talked about, 3-4 items. That Corki is going to do a huge amount of work. With a Leona, with a Lucian, with a Nocturne, you need to be getting these early fights and these early kills. Otherwise, you're just going to fall too far behind.
I think it's about picking and curating your fights. And with Fnatic's composition, they have so many tools to do that. With the Paranoia, with the Solar Eclipse, with the Cannonball comp from Galio, it's very easy for them that once they see 1 member out of position, they can immediately blow up the fight. But I think the vision changes to the game really impact them here. You're not allowed to carry as many pink wards. Once you lose vision, it's very hard to get that back. And I think that is kind of bleeding in a little bit into their ability to have an open map and find these crucial picks that they need. But so far, Fnatic, Bwipo did a really good job in the first team fight with the Rift Herald getting that massive flank, but the second team fight was just a bad fight to take.
Yeah, so a couple of things they'll have to clean up if we go back into this game. For those of you just joining us, we are right in the middle of Game 1, Fnatic versus SK Gaming, but there is a pause from Fnatic. Fnatic have reported latency issues to League officials, and they are currently investigating. So hopefully we can get the game back underway in just a little bit. So as said, if you haven't seen the game up until now, SK is quite frankly smashing Fnatic and surprising many people.
I think smashing
strong
is fair.
language.
I think smashing is fair. Fnatic have got like 2 or 3 kills in the game. They lost Double Dragon early on. They lost Rift Herald as well. Like, you're coming into El Clasico. You're the first game of the LEC. Fnatic are getting smashed right now.
Okay, I totally understand where you're coming from, but I'm just looking at like a huge bounty on Corki because he's been sitting there picking up the kills on the farm. We haven't seen the bounty system. You know, I don't think it's necessarily good enough that when this game gets snowballed out of control that like the bounty system's going to be what evens the tides.
Hey, who knows?
But again, it's a single team fight, and Fnatic are in a team fight oriented composition and a play style that really suits them. So right now it looks really disastrous, but because it's Fnatic, you're just sitting there like,
they can definitely come back.
Until that Nexus is done.
Yeah, unless it's IG in the final, they can definitely bounce back.
Remind me of that game, Shocks.
No, why would you do that to me?
Listen, I was trying to keep it control, but we've been talking for a while. Sometimes one of those burns just slips out. No, but the point that I'm getting at is they did get to the final of that World Championship with 4 out of the 5 people that are still on that stage right now. So in some way, this this time hopefully has helped them. So when they get back in the game, they can redirect their goals.
But I don't think that means that it's the same Fnatic, and that's a fairly obvious thing to say when you're missing Zoas and Caps. But I think fans are still underestimating how important Caps was to the success of Fnatic. A lot of things started with him, especially at that World Championship. It was Broxah and it was Caps really that were just stepping up. Rekkles had a couple of his good plays, but usually it's, wait for the 5v5. We know our ADC is a great team fighter, but it's about these 2 superstars in the mid jungle that are going to take off for us. And now that that dynamic's been changed, again, you kind of have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, but absolutely so. It is so easy to say, well, they were the champions, they will be it again. Surely that isn't the biggest difference, but it is a huge difference when you put that rookie in the mid lane now in that experienced lineup who has given a bit of a different style than Caps. And all of a sudden, you have to change the communication. You have to change the way you do that first gank. You have to change everything. And, well, change it to win this game, which apparently isn't working out too well for now.
It's interesting as well, because I got the chance to talk to Nemesis a little bit about his expectations for the league, and he was saying, like, yeah, we'll get first in spring, we'll get first in summer, we'll win MSI, we'll win Worlds, and he's very confident. And Youngbuck's saying, yeah, we have to be very confident. We made finals of Worlds last year.
Gotta be.
We have to say we're going to win every time. But there was still that level of anticipation for the first few games, because he knew he wasn't Caps, and he knew that he would have to find a way to work in the meta, and the team has to find a way to work around him. I'd like to see Fnatic put a bit more impetus on Broxah, maybe taking back to something like the Hylissang, put some more pressure up towards that top
You're
lane.
You're already talking like they lost and it's the next game.
Yes, I am, and I apologize. They haven't lost yet.
If that's
but
your opinion.
To me, it feels like Fnatic have lost this game and SK are going to take it.
Well, if that is the case, then let's talk about how huge it would be for this SK Gaming roster to not only come back to the LEC, but beat out that team with which they had such a big rivalry for years and years ago, and just make a win happen on the first day against Fnatic would be huge for SK Gaming.
EU talent, I don't know what's in the water in all of these countries, but it just seems like you guys just, anywhere you reach, you can find like superstars to come flying out of the gates out of nowhere. Like no one knew these names. Pirean obviously has had a bit of a tenured history, although with a lot of turmoil, a lot of ups and downs, but Dreams, likewise, kind of the same story. But this guy has been such a solo queue monster. I believe he was like top 5 in Korean solo queue, and no one's talking about him.
Yeah, there are so many players on this team that I look at and I think, actually, I recognize that name. Like, you look at Werlyb in the top lane, he was around a lot of years
Giants,
ago.
baby.
Playing Jax on Giants, couldn't play anything else for love nor money. Now he comes back, playing tanks, putting a bit more pressure in that top lane.
All these
just
players.
doing incredible stuff. Pirean, second place on every team he's on, then comes back and makes a statement in game 1. Dreams on Misfits Academy, replaced by Ignar, now back in the LEC, actually making a statement for himself.
Yeah, it feels like all of these players have done great things, but are waiting for that chance to prove themselves, to take that extra step and go the extra mile. And they would have a fantastic start if they win this game here today.
And that's the beauty of long-term partnerships. The fact that orgs can now invest in a lot of this talent that they want to build up. Sheepy, obviously former coach of Unicorns of Love, now the coach of SK, has a tenured history of working and kind of discovering new talent, of crafting them. And, I made a tweet on social media that I feel like you can see Sheepy's fingerprints a little bit in some of these team fights. I mean, UOL were so good at just A-ramming mid lane. You never wanted to fight them in that circle of death. And what have we seen? We've seen a couple of mid lane fights where even though Bwipo got an incredible flank, I think the target selection from SK was still really strong.
I do believe we're going to get an update in just a second.
Please be good news.
Yes, I don't know. Let's see. So in Game 1, Fnatic paused the game, reporting latency issues to League officials. Now, after reviewing the shadow play and discussing with the teams, officials have determined this game will be remade and played on a different
Good news for
competitive
Fnatic.
server. We are now in the process of changing the competitive server the game is played on, and we will restart the game once players are ready. You will apologize, Medic, for that little
my
quip, because
apology. My apologies.
It is not a fun situation to be in if this is your
not.
first game to play on stage, both for Fnatic and for SK Gaming.
Of course, yeah, and I apologize for that statement. I shouldn't have said it. I think you have to just try and reset here mentally, right? Sheepy has a lot of experience. I'm sure he'll talk to SK and say, look, guys, we just have to reset. We played incredibly well in the first part of the match. Now we can come in, just go into the remade game as well. Fnatic, they need to reevaluate exactly how they played that game and reset, come into this one with a fresh mind.
There are new picks and bans as well.
Okay, I'm going to push back a little bit. I think that I mean, obviously it sucks. You never want to have a remake. But I think that both teams can actually stick with the same strategy and just try to run it back. I don't think that there was anything really inherently wrong or huge glaring errors in either draft strategy. I liked what Fnatic were putting together with their playstyle. I liked the emphasis on Lucian. You still have the Swedish superstar ADC. Give him one of the best marksmen that's been pretty much permabanned in LCK and LPL. And it felt like SK were just kind of matching toe for toe and trying to find the counter picks were available.
Definitely so. We won't beat around the bush. This sucks for us, but of course for the players on the Rift right now or who are just going to remake, so hopefully they can keep their heads in the games, because this is just part of all of it. They have to, in a couple of minutes, have that new strategy, get those same or new picks and bans, and make sure that they start off at the same foot for SK Gaming then, especially, because that's where it's gonna hurt for them. They have to get that same activity on the Rift from minute 1.
And it has to be Selfmade again. He was the catalyst. He was the spark that lit the fire under SK in this game. If he can do that again, give him another early jungler, give him someone he can be aggressive on, it could work out well for SK.
And that's what I want to focus the audience's attention to. It's kind of now reevaluating where we saw these teams put their priorities for the draft phase. So for Fnatic, it was that priority pick of the Lucian, put it in the Rekkles basket. The fact that they got the counter pick of the support, the Leona into the Rakan, a very well-known counter maneuver there. So I think that if they want to stay there, maybe Broxah takes a bit more of an early aggressive jungler, starts feeding more into that lane, or maybe they decide that, okay, Bwipo's the guy we want to go for. He obviously wants to play very aggressive, so let's give him a bit more safety, a bit more attention. Whereas on the other side, SK were all about their jungler. You know, it was a very early rotation of the Xin Zhao. They had the Rakan, so obviously looking for those engages and looking for that very early skirmish potential on the map.
Werlyb seems to be, yeah, you're still pretty happy.
Yeah.
They're down to get back on the Rift and hopefully play an as good of a game. So that's not looking forward. We have to leave it there for a second when it comes to this game. But I think to me, it immediately proves that all those power rankings and all the expectations you have, they might not necessarily ring through when it comes to playing your first game on stage.
Oh, definitely. I think you have to remember, for a lot of these players, it is the first game on the LEC stage, especially for someone like Nemesis. He's really just trying to understand, how you deal with the lights, how you deal with the pressure in the moment. There's so much pressure put on you to open in El Classico up against a team that's just come up into the league.
And as far as for us, ladies and gentlemen, we are, of course, filling a little bit of time because we want to give the teams the necessary time to reset. So let's take a look at the schedule to know what after this game is also